Okay, as you introduced me, my name is Shibla Toll. I am a proud member of the League of Women Voters, and I'm your moderator for this evening's candidate forum for the office of council member for the City of San Diego's District 2. Okay. First of all, I'd love to thank our host, Point Loma Association. Fantastic. We'd also like to thank the candidates. They're in alphabetical order this way. Richard Bailey, Joshua Coyne, Nicole Crosby, Mandy Havlick, Jacob Mitchell, Paul Supa. Most important, we'd like to thank you for coming and becoming an informed voter. The League is proud to be nonpartisan, neither supporting nor opposing candidates or political parties, but always working on the vital interests of concern to our members and to the public. For clarity, I do not live in District 2, and therefore I'm impartial regarding this election. The forum is an opportunity for you to ask questions you care about most and a chance for the candidates to explain their positions. It's a forum with the voters, not a debate between candidates. We're using the League of Women Voters format for the candidate forum. As part of our mission to educate voters, we moderate candidate forums using a format that we feel is fair and informative, and the candidates have all agreed to this format in advance. So a little bit about how this is going to work. The candidates will have 2 minutes for an opening statement, and then they'll have 2 minutes for a closing statement. In between those, we'll go through as many questions as we can. They have 1 minute to respond to each question. The order of the candidates has been selected randomly, and then I randomize it on each question. So they follow different people, they're ahead of different people. Basically, I can't get into any rhythm, so that's what happens. So what's most important on this forum is hearing from you and the questions you have. There will be no verbal questions from the audience. Please hold all applause until the forum is finished. This is key. So it allows us to, one, ask more questions, which is kind of the goal. The candidate forum is designed as nonpartisan setting for undecided voters to hear positions. Any demonstration of support or opposition, such as clapping or booing, is pretty much out of order. Okay? Unheeded warnings may result in the cancellation of the forum, which would not be great. Okay? So, this is what we're going to do. We are ready to begin. So we're going to start with the opening statements. It's 2 minutes, and we are going to start. It just so happens he got number one, candidate Bailey.
Well, good evening, everyone. Thank you again to our host, and thanks to each and every one of you for caring about San Diego. I imagine most of you just don't care about San Diego. I imagine most of you probably have concerns about our city's future, whether it's the city's $100+ million structural deficit, or it's the excessive trash and parking fees that are increasing your cost of living, or the potholes on every street, or the condition of the parks where your children play. There is a lot to be concerned with. The fact of the matter is the city is on a financially unsustainable path, and they're making decisions along the way that are making San Diego a less desirable place to live. Now, I previously had the honor of serving as the 53rd mayor of Coronado, and today I'm proud to call Point Loma home. Not only am I a homeowner here, but I also own 2 businesses within the district. And prior to being a local business owner, I worked as a financial analyst for a Fortune 500 company where I was actually responsible for making decisions that affected the company's bottom line. In addition to working as a financial analyst, I also worked as an adjunct professor at University of San Diego where I taught economics. And I believe my experience in both the public and private sector make me convinced that the challenges facing City Hall right now are due to irresponsible spending and management decisions, and that the same political leadership and policies that created these challenges won't be able to solve them. I care about San Diego. I care about our city's future, and I believe we need someone that's willing to stand up to City Hall, to hold City Hall accountable through better policies and new leadership to provide better representation. Not for the special interests or the political class in downtown. They already have plenty of representation. but to provide better representation for the people that are in this room here tonight, and I look forward to discussion on how to make that happen.
Candidate Supa.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for being here. San Diego is in a state of crisis. We're in a situation where for every $3 collected, $1 is going to the San Diego Police Department. So on a $2.1 billion revenue, that's, in this year, $703.5 million. That is twice the national average. National average is 16.6% of the general fund for police. We're spending 32.5%. If we reduce that by 5% to 27%, we close the budget gap. San Diego has been on a tear for police spending. In 2025, it went up 30 million. In 2026, it went up over 30 million. And in 2027, it's projected to go up $15 million. So when you're talking about $11 million that can be collected from Balboa Park in fees, and the $3 million that it takes to keep our libraries open, they're closing Sundays, Mondays, we can reverse that now if we rescind the 2027 increase to the police department. And I am pro-public safety, okay? I want that to be very clear. I'm not anti-police. We need to reorganize, reprioritize our budget, or we will have big problems. The police right now are making about $400,000 in their salaries when you take into account overtime. We need to stop overtime, okay? If we don't, we're just gonna keep sliding into the abyss financially. So there's other things to consider, of course. We've got the pension liabilities, which is 17.4% of the budget. That's $378 million, followed by the fire department with $300 million. Those three that I just mentioned, that's every second and third dollar for the police, for the overall general budget, and we need to reverse that. Thank you.
Candidate Havlik.
Can you hear me? All right. Good evening, everyone. Thank you to the Point Loma Association and the League of Women Voters for hosting this and giving us space tonight. My name is Mandy Havlik, and I'm running for San Diego City Council because I love this community. And I've already spent years proving that love through service. I'm not a career politician, I'm your neighbor. I'm a mom to 2 teens. I'm the spouse to a Navy combat veteran who's disabled, and we know what it means to serve and sacrifice. I'm not a career politician, and for the last 7 years, you've already trusted me to represent this community as an elected member of the planning board here in Point Loma, where I now serve as the first vice chair. I also serve as the first vice chair of the Sunset Cliffs Natural Park Council. I've helped fight for safer streets, traffic safety, and e-bike safety. I've worked to protect our parks, coastline, and open spaces, and I've stood up for thoughtful development and against bad projects that ignore the realities of our neighborhood. I've worked on environmental restoration, I've planted native habitat, and I've helped preserve the places that make Point Loma special. I've also shown up outside of those boardrooms. I volunteered in our schools, helped families in need, supported local events, organized neighbors, and built community wherever I could. During difficult times, I didn't step back, I stepped in. That's the difference in this race. I'm not asking for trust based on promises alone. I'm asking based on a history of service to this community. Right now, too many people feel that City Hall is not working for them, that they've forgotten the neighborhoods. Families are stretched thin, seniors feel overlooked, and residents are frustrated by the traffic, the homelessness, the crumbling infrastructure, and the rising cost of our city. I'm running to bring the community back to City Hall, to restore trust and to build a city that works for the people who live here. This campaign is grassroots and people-powered. It belongs to neighbors who know we deserve better. I would be honored to have your vote and for the chance to keep serving you. Thank you.
Candidate Mitchell.
Hi, my name is Jake. Oh, that's very loud. Hi, my name is Jacob Mitchell. I'm a fourth generation San Diegan, born and raised here in Point Loma. And I'm running because I'm a nerd and I think I'd be really good at the job. So my incentive structure is in place. I am young. For the next 30 years, maybe 50, maybe 100 if technology is good, I will be living in this community and I will be next to you all as my peers. You are my constituents, not lobbyists, not City Hall. So fundamentally, as a member of the City Council, you have to do two things. You have to represent the community on City Hall, and then you also need to represent all of San Diego with good decisions in your voting. I am interested in learning how things work, and so I've obsessively dived into the systems, or really the lack of good systems they create incentive structures where affordable housing can only exist through bonus density ADUs or handouts to billionaires for giant developments. So I've created pragmatic solutions in my policy, and I hope whoever wins steals them, because they are what the community needs. It is affordable housing that meets with the community character. It is pre-approved multiplex designs. We already have SB 9. People were worried about it. I think a much bigger threat to community character right now is the ADUs being slammed in. These multiplexes, duplexes, triplexes have a lot higher safety standards, a lot higher building standards to make sure they're habitable homes. And this is actually those missing middle opportunities that don't exist. So I want to make it so you can develop where you live, and you get to feel maybe a bit of that luxury of a billionaire developer, of an easy development process in San Diego. I want to make that accessible to the average person. And then on homelessness, I want to bring accountability. I wish I could come to you with a solution. I care about data. We don't have good data. So my solution focuses on getting data first with a balanced homelessness scorecard. Jacob Mitchell, thank you.
Candidate Crosby.
I was faster than the mic. All right. Good evening, everyone. I'm Nicole Crosby. I'm a native Californian, a Claremont resident, a proud mom, and a deputy city attorney. I'm running for city council to make sure that my daughter Audrey and her friends can live in a neighborhood with safe streets and clean environment. I'm running to ensure that our communities receive reliable and quality city services. As an active community member, I've served the Claremont Town Council as president, and I'm currently the PTA president at my daughter's elementary school. As a San Diego deputy city attorney, I've protected the elderly from bad landlords and abuse. I've prosecuted hate crimes and domestic violence, and I led the state's first gun program that removed firearms from dangerous individuals. After a decade of public service, I understand how city government works and ways that City Hall needs to deliver real results for our communities. Through this work, I have shown that I can manage budgets, I apply for grant funding for our government programs, and my experience is what's going to help deliver results for District 2. Every day I hear how disappointed residents are about how the city can't do simple things like keeping our streetlights on and repairing our potholes. And man, people are angry. They're so angry that the city council doubled their trash fee after the voters voted for what was in the ballot book. And now they're forcing us and city residents to pay to park in our city parks. People have a right to be angry. And whether it's the federal government tearing the Bill of Rights, whether it's greedy developers bulldozing our neighborhoods, or even carpetbaggers coming in trying to tell us how our city government needs to be run, San Diegans are feeling the devastation and the devastation of the outside interests coming in here to tell us how our city and our neighborhoods should be run. But we know that our neighborhoods are run best when our neighbors lead the way. And I'm Nicole Crosby, and I'm gonna be a champion for our neighborhoods and a better quality life in District 2. Thank you.
Candidate Coyne.
It's okay. Good evening. Thank you all so much for being here. I'd like to give a huge shout out to the Point Loma Association for their continued work to keep my neighborhood clean and safe. I have to say, I, as a former city employee, had the proud privilege of being at the Valley High when the meetings were there at 7 a.m. Not for Mai Tai, but for coffee. And I want to thank the Mean Green team especially for continuing to show up every day, every Friday to keep our streets clean. I'm running because our city is not meeting the moment, and I've never been one to stand on the sidelines when needed most. I'm the son of a small business owner and a grocery store clerk, and the first in my family to graduate from college. Education was really important to my mom, and it was important that I got more than she was afforded. It's extremely important that we continue to show up for the next generation, and I believe that we as leaders have an opportunity to do that at all levels of government. I moved to San Diego for work as a proud educator at the University of San Diego. While there, not only did I fall in love with my city, but fell in love with my now husband, John, and we've had the privilege of calling Point Loma our home with our little dog, Lucy, for the last 10 years. Not one generation of leaders can continue to go by in the city without ending our street homelessness crisis. Not one generation can continue to accept the fact that we need to address the cost of living in this city and ensure that we can end the constant state of crisis that this city is always in. Whether it's budgets, homelessness, infrastructure, far too long, far too plagued. I believe as the only one, the only candidate that has worked on the city floor that has the experience to do that can start on day one to address that. I believe that we have to meet this moment no matter what chapter we are in. It is extremely important that we look ahead to the future, and I really look forward to the conversation tonight. Thank you very much.
Okay, so now it's time for the candidates to answer your questions. As a reminder, each candidate will have 1 minute for their response. We're going to jump like feet first into this, and of course, I'm going to violate our first thing, and we're going to do yes or no, and to make it easy on me, is we're just going to go yes or no straight down here. So the yes or no, and then we'll come back in the random order for the why. So the question is, do you support or oppose Measure A, the non-primary homes tax, on the June 2nd ballot?
No, opposed.
Yes.
Yes.
No.
Very sad, yes.
No also.
Okay, so now the question is, why? So we're going to start with candidate Mitchell.
So my yes is very tailored. My yes is because if it were implemented, I hope that some people who have vacant homes would choose to put them back on the market. The reality is it's probably not very enforceable, so I don't want to waste money from the city to try and enforce it. And there's a lot of questions around property rights and how it affects that. I see it as a heuristic. We want to make housing affordable. We're going to attack this. But the city is also the same people that have created policies for ADUs and for short-term rentals that have created a lot bigger problem in this district than a lot of other areas in the community. So if you're in Point Loma, if you're an OB, we really feel the pressures of these SVTRs. And I think policy needs to come in to address it. But right now we've got very nuanced, like hazardous space, and we need simple policies. So I support, sorry, my time got cut off.
Candidate Havlik, sorry.
Thank you. I'm not in support of it because, again, the enforcement of the city, I don't think they can properly enforce it. There's been concern as well as about the legality of it. There's been some litigation with other cities like San Francisco who have tried to adopt a vacancy tax. I agree with Jacob. I believe that we've had a missed opportunity when it comes to short-term vacation rentals. I believe that we can increase the fine structure, and we can really look at the ordinance to fortify it and increase fines to generate revenue for the city. But again, I think we're looking at the wrong audience. We really need to look at billionaires who are not paying taxes. We also need to look at local corporations who are not paying livable wages to individuals here because they can't afford housing. Those are the reasons why I'm not in support of the vacancy tax.
Candidate Crosby.
I support the vacancy tax, and we need to sort of assess what it looks like when the ordinance is finalized. but it's because short-term vacation rentals and vacant homes destroy communities. It reduces the number of students in our classrooms. It reduces the number of seniors who are able to stay near their families. It reduces voters. When we don't have voters in our communities, we have less of a voice as a whole. It reduces the number of dollars that we get from the state and federal government, and that's based on our census numbers. And we know that as San Diegans, we need to focus on our communities and make sure that we are prioritizing the people who live here. Short-term vacation rentals and vacant homes, they cost the city money currently because we have police and fire responding to calls for service at either party houses or creating nuisances and being just a higher level of utilization in a neighborhood that was not met for it. We have hotels, we have a robust business district and wonderful places for people to visit, and that is why I support that measure.
Candidate Supa.
So we do need to highly scrutinize any additional taxation, and that's why I'm against it. Ultimately, I find it to be governmental overreach, and it's not a precedent we need to be setting lightly. In law, there is a general rule, and there is an exception to those rules. The exception in this case, for me, would be for corporations. So vacant homes, secondary homes, held, vested, entitled by corporations should be taxed because we need to incentivize the policy of having accountability in our neighborhoods locally.
Candidate Coyne.
I think it's important to note as we talk about taxing and fees and structures, 18 cents of every dollar that you might pay in property taxes stays at the city and the rest moves elsewhere. That is not enough for the city to recover its costs for folks who have more than one home. It's not enough for us, for the city to conduct its business and frankly to address the cost of living that we're talking about. The city has outlined what I see as an adequate structure to ensure that we can recover and move that forward. I think there is an opportunity in the future to think about how it is that each of these fees and fines, right, can continue to address the city's budget crisis, but only in a way, right, that makes sense from a holistic perspective. At this time, as outlined, based on the taxing structure, that is one of the reasons that I support it.
Candidate Bailey.
I'm opposed to any new taxes and fees, and I think you all should be too, for the simple reason that the city does not have a revenue problem. It has a spending and management problem. Last fiscal year, it brought in an all-time high record amount of tax revenue. But I'm specifically opposed to this tax for several reasons. Number one, it's likely, as candidate Havlik shared, it's likely unconstitutional. This will probably be another example of the city pursuing something, spending hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars that will be struck down in court. Number two, the number of vacant homes in San Diego have not increased dramatically. So to suggest that they're somehow responsible for the city's budget situation or housing situation is, quite frankly, intellectually lazy. But number three, think of the concept here. Trying to tax inactivity, a vacant home. What's next? Are they going to tax you for having a vacant backyard for not building an ADU? Just out of principle, this should be opposed.
Okay, next question. What is your position on the city's density bonus program? We're going to start with candidate Havlik.
I think that's the issue with all of our communities. The state density bonus law, it does allow for a lot of density. It allows for buildings and development to go vertical, but it also takes a lot of the requirements. It takes away a lot of the parking requirements. It takes away, there's a CEQA waiver, you know, and I really believe that we're missing the mark when it comes to growing our communities. We need methodical, safe, and smart growth of our communities. We're a coastal community. It's especially important here in our neighborhood because the Point Loma, you know, this entire neighborhood is on a peninsula. And there's some very big plans that the community, that the city and the state have for our neighborhoods with Midway Rising and Navwar. And we really need to do our part and build the housing, the deeply affordable units that is needed to help with those who are on vouchers. But again, unfortunately, state density bonus law is having hotels be realized in our neighborhoods. And I think that's not what state density bonus law should be used for.
Candidate Coyne.
I think it's important also to talk about the impact that state law continues to have on the implementation, specifically around housing. You probably have seen that our cost of living, specifically around rent, has continued to decrease based on the number of homes that we have continued to build. That's particularly why I've been in support of redeveloping the Midway District. It's also why we need to talk about how it is that we can provide not just the housing that comes with the development, but the needs that come with the neighborhood alongside of it. Every time that I talk to a neighbor about the impacts that they're feeling about an ADU or housing, they start very frustrated, which is understandable in some cases. However, when we start talking about the real needs that government can provide around transportation, around parking or services, quality of service, right, that conversation shifts a little bit. And I think we need to start talking a little bit deeper about what it is that government can do for people instead of talking about what we're going to stop doing.
Candidate Crosby.
I think the state bonus program is very well intentioned, and actually it's more restrictive than the city program. And I think the city program is really where things went wrong, because it was the ADU program that was overly expansive in areas that just caused mass chaos, and not just in infrastructure, but in damaging our canyons and our end of cul-de-sacs, making emergency services very dangerous. We need to think about, transportation is real. Like, transportation in the state law actually exists. Transportation in the city's version doesn't have to exist. I have to walk 1 mile in any direction to get to one bus, and that is through a dark canyon because there are no streetlights there. There is no sidewalk. It is not safe, and that is irresponsible for us to put density bonus in those locations. There needs to actually be thought, there needs to be planning. Development is inevitable, but it must be intentional.
Candidate Bailey.
One-size-fits-all zoning doesn't work for the state of California, and it doesn't work for the city of San Diego. But instead of just allowing the state density bonus laws to exist on their own, the city of San Diego decided to pour gasoline on fire and create their own density bonus laws. That is what has allowed projects like the 23-story tower over in Pacific Beach, and that's what's allowed the 40-unit development just down the road here off of Rosecrans without any parking whatsoever because of a supposed planned bus route sometime in the future. Who here believes that supposed planned bus route is actually going to move those 40 units, the people living in those 40 units? We need to make significant reforms to complete communities because you can't have complete communities without adequate parking.
Candidate Mitchell.
So these bonus programs, like people have explained, a lot of these come from the state. So it's not like San Diego, that's what we would have rules over. But San Diego has done the bonus program for ADUs, and that's you look at incentives. It's incentivized developers to create pseudo apartment complexes through an ADU loophole. And that's what people are talking about when they're like, what is happening to my community? What are these ADU complexes coming up? It is developers being able to take advantage of loopholes that you really don't have access to. And now that we want to litigate ADUs so much, if you want to make an actual granny flat, it's exceptionally difficult because there's a lot of litigation. Because we create an environment for only developers, people with lawyers, and a lot of time and money to navigate. I want to create a system that you guys can navigate, that normal people. The incentive structure is set up for billionaires to be the only ones that can build in San Diego, and you're supposed to accept it because it's affordable housing. I want affordable housing, but I want it to be built naturally.
Candidate Supa.
So my opinion is we should actually start calling density initiatives what they are. It is a cover for decades of mismanagement and fiscal irresponsibility that has led us to this point where we are selling housing affordability to individuals. And what the actual effect is state law, SB 79, taking effect in July, and other rules. They are packing us into our communities like sardines with no regard for infrastructure. I am pro-infrastructure. We need to have parking, sewage, electrical associated with all building expansion. I am not demonizing developers, but I'm saying we need to call it what it is. The density initiatives are a cover. and our politicians have failed us. And so in order to write the budget, we need to reorganize and rebalance the budget, and then we'll be able to honestly address affordability issues. Thank you.
Okay, the next question. What is your position on Midway Rising? We're going to start with candidate Crosby.
I really think that Midway Rising needs to happen. It is a very underserved, dilapidated, really sad area that needs help. But like the rest of the city, it also needs transportation. And that needs to be part of the plan. And that part of the plan, because it has been going for a long time, is something that could have and should have been implemented simultaneously. I will say that it is a good location for height. I don't think that there should be a blanket elevation of 30-foot height limit everywhere, but there are places where it's appropriate. And that's how come it's really critical that we as city leaders talk to our community, talk to our town councils, our planning groups, and make sure that we know what's going on, and the topography of every location is different. So Midway will be revitalized. Midway will be a wonderful place, not just to go see games in a first-class, arena, but also somewhere that's gonna be welcoming and inviting, which is a lot better than it is today.
Candidate Bailey.
The sports arena site should clearly be redeveloped. I don't think there's many people that disagree with redeveloping the sports arena site and even including some housing. I think the question many of us are asking is, why does it have to be so gosh darn large? 4,500 housing units. Well, the reason it has to be so large is because of the way the State Surplus Lands Act reads now, which was approved by Mayor Todd Gloria when he was in the Assembly. And what the Surplus Lands Act requires is that it requires cities, when they're going through the process, to enter into exclusive negotiation with whichever developer submits the highest number of affordable housing units. So it incentivizes more units, because the only way you can make up the difference on the back end by having so many affordable housing units is to have even more market rate units. So the incentive structure was set by the state law, it's being supported here locally, and it's what's allowed this project to grow significantly larger than what the site should really be about.
Candidate Supa.
Midway Rising, to me, should be dead on arrival. So we're back to a density initiative. I've knocked on a lot of doors to get on the ballot, and I've spoken with a lot of people, and what they're not going to support is the decrease in parking in their neighborhoods, the fact that they're afraid to leave their house, go get their groceries, they're not gonna have a spot to park when they get back. So why would we introduce 4,500 new units without the incumbent infrastructure that is associated and required with that, the sewage, the electrical, the parking? We're back to the government failing us and needing to cover for their mistakes and raise revenue by packing us into our communities like sardines. It's not gonna work for me, it's not gonna work for anybody, it's gonna be a mess. We need to properly plan and structure any development at Midway. Thank you.
Candidate Coyne.
I'm proud to have been standing with the Midway community since 2019 when I had an opportunity to work with the city, listening and understanding what the needs of that specific community were. And that was that for far too long, the Midway District has been forgotten. Folks see that, it's very understandable. I'm really proud of the work that was put into work back in 2018 when the community plan was passed, also with a lot of impact from the city, but there wasn't enough. And I think that's why citizens of this city voted twice to allow for that community plan to be fully enacted. So I find it interesting that we're talking about the number of units that are being put at that particular site, but it's largely because of obstructionists, right, that have used laws, right, against the voters of this city that have twice passed initiatives to allow for that community plan to be exercised. I'm very excited about the opportunity for that district to be revitalized. I look forward to seeing it connect potentially to a Navar redevelopment, maybe to the airport, potentially with support from the county as they also have land in that area as well. I look forward to it connecting more, but I also look forward to it being revitalized ASAP. Thank you.
Candidate Mitchell.
I feel very conflicted about Midway Rising, but I will say if I were elected, my goals would be for it to go through and meet the community's needs as much as possible, especially with infrastructure, and get them to pay for it as much as possible. So the problem with Midway Rising is kind of what Mr. Bailey said. It's an incentive structure that makes housing not be developed for what is needed or what naturally would go in a place, but literally giving out the contract to the developer with the highest concentration of units. And I care about incentives, right? So the largest donor to Todd Gloria is that developer. So I don't know what that means, but I know no one's given me $100,000. And I would focus on making sure that the incentive system and structure that exists in San Diego, that only Midway that's the only way for you to get affordable housing in your district that's not ADUs. My goal would be to change that. So, sorry, my time's up.
Okay, next question.
I didn't answer.
I'm sorry. Candidate
Thank
Havlick.
you. Thank you. I'm not in support of Midway Rising. No one's denying that Midway needs to be revitalized, but we all know starting 2 o'clock in the afternoon, the wall of traffic that we see heading eastbound. And so I've always said where we build and how high we build, it matters, especially in coastal communities. And so no one's above the law, and I find it funny that candidates are proud of breaking the law. Measure E and Measure C, you're right, they were voted on by the citizens, but they were placed on the ballot and they were ruled by the state Supreme Court as illegal ballot measures. You know why? Because they didn't do the proper analysis, the environmental impact report. They're trying to go rewind history and go back to the 2018 community plan update when the 30-foot height limit was in place. And so we need smart and safe growth in our communities. We don't need to do it Todd's way. We need to restart and really build a Midway Rising that works for our community, because we have a lot of challenges in our community and we need to invest in the traffic safety and the environment. It matters.
Okay, the next question. What have you done specifically for the District 2 community? I'm going to start with candidate Supa.
Well, as an attorney of 26 years, I've donated a lot of time pro bono to victim advocate, and I am serious about helping my neighbors at every turn when I can. I do feel like I do my part. Saturday after the Liberty Station, San Diego Communities, United Communities rally to get a petition to repeal the parking fees, went over to Mission Bay Park and we fed the homeless with a church. It's a wonderful place over there in the San Diego Mission Bay Park area to try and provide services for individuals. And we need to constantly evaluate how we can do more for each other. Thank you.
Candidate Mitchell.
I've served this community in mostly informal ways, so I've just been a neighbor to the people around me and I'm young, I've been trying to make my own life. I honestly haven't particularly focused on service other than seeing where that can apply in my life. So I got into chemistry because I was interested in this guy named Haber, who basically developed the process for modern fertilizers, and he's the reason that the world can carry 10 billion people. So he's probably the most impactful person in the world, some random physical chemist. That's why I pursued that. And I also donated my bone marrow to a stranger. I've participated in homeless ministries when I was a student at PLNU. And I participate in a personal homeless ministry where if you come to my car, you will see it is filled with socks and jackets and clothes. The jackets are not really needed nowadays, but I just try and serve it on a local level. I don't need some big structure to do it. I'll push your car if it's out of gas, you know? All right.
Candidate Bailey.
I currently own 2 businesses in the district. We employ about 12 to 24 people, depending on the time of year. Many of those employees actually live right here in District 2, so I've invested in the district. In addition to that, during my previous time as the Mayor Coronado, when I sat on the Sandag Board of Directors, I fought to remove the mileage tax from the Sandag Regional Transportation Plan, which would have negatively impacted everyone here in the San Diego County region. But most recently, I launched a citizens initiative to repeal the Balboa Park parking fees. And also am a proud proponent of the repeal of the trash fees. And speaking of which, if any of you would like to help us qualify those two initiatives for the ballot, there are petition gatherers outside. So if you haven't already done so, I'd encourage you to sign it. We always hear the affordability crisis is the biggest issue of our time, yet City Hall is actually making it less affordable for all of us. If they're not willing to change it, let's do it ourselves through a citizens initiative.
Candidate Havlick.
What haven't I done for the district? A lot of you know me from my service and showing up for our community. As I said earlier, I've served on the planning board for 7 years. I've served on the Sunset Cliffs Natural Park Council for 7 years. I'm a Rotary member. I'm a member of the Point Loma Rotary. I also help raise money with the La Playa Auxiliary for Rady Children's Hospital to help families and children experiencing cancer. And so those are some of the ways. When I volunteer for cleanups, I help people move, I've helped people find housing, I help at the food distribution. I'm bringing a similar, an anchor station, which is a homelessness resource center to Ocean Beach. It should be opening here in the next month or so. And during the pandemic, I worked with Todd Gloria when he was the state assembly member to help open up Dewey for food distribution, because as a child I was one of 5 kids who got free lunch and free breakfast. And so a lot of my service, it comes from heart and empathy.
Candidate Coyne.
For over 3 years, I had the opportunity of working for the city to represent this district, District 2 specifically, and I think it's important, as I shared my opening, COVID was a very difficult time for folks, and our city was not prepared. City government to this day, I hope they're more prepared, but I can tell you that they were not prepared when COVID hit. And I'm extremely proud of the time that we took to support families and businesses during that very scary time. I'm also really proud of the work that we did to support folks like the Point Loma Association, whether it's murals or better advocating for the Mean Green team, or whether it's working to ensure that the pole-to-pole lighting on Talbot and Rosecrans that took far too long got done and pushed over the finish line. But more importantly, I show up every day to ensure folks who are homeless have the resources that they deserve to not find homes on the street. It's extremely important that we don't bifurcate ourselves between districts, whether you're downtown or in Point Loma. We are one city, and I think it's important that when we continue to show up and find resources for folks, it's an impact for our entire city. Thanks.
Candidate Crosby.
As the Claremont Town Council president, it was really important for me to make sure that our members and our neighbors were able to come to meetings and talk to people that ultimately became their friends and learn about what's going on at City Hall. Let's learn about projects that are happening, because sometimes getting the information is really hard, and it shouldn't be as hard as it is. We need, as a city and as a government and as a leader, to make sure information is accessible. Most people work 2 jobs, 1 job, right? And we need to make sure that every single person in our community is engaged. And trying to make that digestible and easy is one of the things that I've done for a number of years, and I still do currently. As the PTA president at my daughter's school, we make sure that we know what's going on and that no child is left behind. I work with the police and the fire department in my capacity as a deputy city attorney to get homeless individuals who are high utilizers of emergency services real help, because that costs a lot of money, and making sure they're in a stable environment. And those things add up.
Okay, the next question. The mayor's budget. What would you protect and what would you slash? We're going to start with candidate Coyne.
That's a hell of a question to get, the first one. Thank you. I think, number one, we absolutely have to protect public safety. I think it's written right into the charter to be very clear. City's basic responses are ensuring that a firefighter shows up, a police officer shows up when we need to, and frankly, that we have basic infrastructure to, as we have been talking about, whether it's potholes or streetlights. It's extremely important that we protect that. However, we assess, however it is that we can ensure that the funding gets distributed across the general fund. Most importantly, I will also tell you that homelessness funding, about $90 million in the budget. I think there's an opportunity to be a little bit more creative about how it is that we can supplement that department's budget equally across Parks and Rec, whether it's firefighters, lifeguards, librarians, etc. All of the city departments are tasked with dealing in some fashion with homelessness, and I think there's an opportunity to assess that as well. I would say it's extremely important as well that we find a way to not turn off our revenue drivers like the arts and find ways to redistribute the budget that's in front of us. Thanks.
Candidate Mitchell.
So they have created some cuts, but we still have a deficit budget. It hasn't been changed. About the cuts, I would fund the city auditor and ask him to, with his educated discretion, go through this and find the best ways to make cuts. Probably 10 million or so from homelessness services. Definitely a bit out of the police budget blow. I mean, the reality is the police officers are doing the majority of their day is serving homeless people. So if we change enforcement laws so they can actually bring people in without seeing them 6 times, which is the current law, we can reduce that requirement for police officers on the budget while still getting the same amount of public safety from them. Furthermore, arts and crafts, arts and culture, not crafts. Very important, and we get a positive return on it. Why cut things we get positive returns on? Thank you.
Candidate Crosby.
When I saw the mayor a couple weeks ago, I told him I really hated his budget, and I was very disappointed. We cannot cut arts and culture. They are a tremendous impact, not just to an economic driver, but also to the youth in our communities. And the funny part is that there are grants that have been obtained and are reliant on positions of the city, and we cannot be penny wise and pound foolish. And I also said that I'm very disappointed that we are not aggressively seeking out grants, because grants can help give us strong foundation for our future. And he said, well, that's usually one-time funding. And I said, yeah, that's one-time funding for things that we shouldn't have to build every time. Like if we are applying for grants to help build the OB Pier, to create our infrastructures and freeways to make the traffic out of Midway better, this makes sense. This is something that is thoughtful. And yeah, we do need to thin out some things and make sure that we are auditing the contracts we're doing, but at the end of the day, we need to be aggressive, we need to be reasonable. And I have a master's in tax law, not just an attorney who's been prosecuting things, but being realistic. The system hasn't been set up for us and it needs to.
Candidate Supa.
The budget is way out of whack, and as long as we're slashing the arts, closing our libraries, hiking up fees for parking and trash, it's a problem, and it's going to keep getting worse. So if you reconcile the fact that we continue to increase the budget for our police, right, 75 million over the last 3 years, then we can fund those programs. If we simply rescind the latest increase of 15 million for 2027, we can reverse the cut on the Neil Good Day Center and help the homeless downtown, right? We can reopen our libraries, we can eliminate the parking fees, and we can discuss eliminating the trash fees. But until we are serious about a balanced budget, right? That is not 703.5 million and counting to 718 million for the police in 2027. It's a problem. We need to reverse it. Thanks.
Candidate Bailey.
The city of San Diego does not have a revenue problem. It has a spending and management problem. Consider that from 2015 through last year, the city's population only increased by 1%, but city staffing increased by 27%. Much of that was fueled by middle management growth of about 460%. Now the question we should all be asking ourselves is, what do we get in return for that as taxpayers? Well, across every single department, for nearly every single key performance metric, performance actually decreased by orders of magnitude compared to 2015. Now, the $100 million structural deficit we see, that is simply the operating gap. That's not the true spending gap. By the time you add in the operating deficit and the backlog for all of the road repairs and facility projects that are being postponed, the true spending gap is closer to $400 to $500 million. You're not going to be able to grant your way out of that. The federal government is trillions in debt. The state government is billions of dollars in deficit right now. We have to go back to the very least 2015 staffing levels. That puts us immediately into a $100 million operating surplus and reduces our pension liabilities by about $100 million annually. That is the only way out of this mess.
Candidate Havlick.
Thank you. I think I would protect the arts, libraries, and homelessness services. Right now, I really think the opportunity for cutting spending is specifically towards the middle management. You know, we saw that they announced about 48, 49 of those positions. I believe we can cut that further, an additional 100 or more requisitions. And again, applying for grants for a city of our size is kind of laughable to me because, again, this is a budget deficit, not a nonprofit. I think grants are great, but that's something that's complementary on the back end. I don't think that's an approach that a city of our size should be addressing firsthand. I think we should look to finding money within buckets of money that are sitting around not being used. I think there's an opportunity to expand the tax collection on transient occupancy tax, on online travel companies. Right now, we currently don't capture the TOT tax, and I think that would be a way to generate revenue.
Okay. What measures do you support to address homelessness? And we're going to start with candidate Bailey.
The number of unsheltered homeless individuals in the city and county of San Diego have increased by about 50% over the past 10 years. Now, we've all been hearing about the amount of overtime the police department is receiving. Well, one of the reasons the police department receives so much overtime is because of the amount of coverage necessary to actually adequately serve the city. Now, why is so much coverage necessary? It's because about 50% of all calls to 911 are related to homeless activity. Why is that the case? Because the city of San Diego has what's known as a 4-contact policy, meaning when someone is breaking the law, depending on the severity of the law, police officers are not allowed to hold them accountable on the first contact. They must first inform them that what they're doing is breaking the law. Then they must warn them. Then they must cite them, and then they can finally hold them accountable. Well, when you have fewer police officers today than you did back in 1990, and this 4-contact policy in place, there is no accountability that's actually going to serve as a point of diversion to help many of these people who are sadly struggling with addiction to actually get the help they need and back on their feet. So first and foremost, we need to update that policy.
Candidate Supa.
As I mentioned, we need to absolutely reverse the cuts to, for example, the Neil Good Day Center. That's a lifeline for homeless people that need an address and free laundry, right? What happens if we cut that lifeline? They go out into the community, there's increased substance abuse issues, crime that's inherent with that. If we don't reasonably address those issues, it's going to continue to spiral. So we need to be obviously compassionate and tough. We cannot have encampments. We have to prioritize our children over individuals that are in encampments. We have to have safe streets for our children. They shouldn't be expected to walk over homeless people in the streets. If they are sexualized, they need to get the treatment. If they are violent, they need to be removed. They need to be jailed, right? And then those that are struggling, we can engage in increased training to get them back, reintroduce them into the job market so they can be tax-paying citizens.
Candidate Havlick.
Thank you. We really need to get a real plan when it comes to homelessness. You know, the approach that the city is making is very disjointed, and we don't partner with all of the nonprofits that are showing up and asking to help. I think there's an opportunity again for us as a city, rather than blame the county, what the current leadership is doing is to collaborate. I would love to spearhead and be the connection with the county to collaborate and coordinate additional funding to help address homelessness in our neighborhoods. But just like Paul Supa said, we need places for people to go. I am very much in support of resources like Neil Good Day Center, the Compass Station. I'm already doing my part bringing Anchor Station in to meet people where they're at. In addition to that, we all know that we don't have enough shelter spaces. We need to get real about the type of shelter that we're looking to build. I'm for smaller, medium size shelters that have a door. Someone can close the door behind them and feel safe, not these big box shelters that Todd Gloria proposed that don't work for the community or for those who are unhoused.
Candidate Mitchell.
So if you go on my website, I have designed a policy proposition called the Homelessness Scorecard. Currently, a majority of our funds for the city's distribution of homelessness services goes out through NGOs. And they do have requirements. There is a bit of oversight, but there has never once been a recorded case of that oversight changing the funding of an NGO. There's a bunch of different ones, and they've got overlapping priorities. I think these people are doing a great service, and I'm not chomping at the bit to cut anybody. But with this homelessness scorecard, instead of looking at the city as a flat field, we'd be focusing more on each program and how many people they convert to long-term housing, get out of addiction, get into long-term services. So with that scorecard, then with a properly funded city auditor in probably 1 to 2 years' time, the city could come in and really, really make educated decisions to find what's working and divert your funds there so that we stop throwing all our money in a big pot and not knowing what we get for it.
Candidate Coyne.
Thank you. I'm really tired of talking about homelessness as a crisis, and I think it's time that the next generation of leaders moves to the city to really truly end this crisis. And let me tell you, in 2022, when the city wasn't doing enough to address downtown homelessness, I'm proud of my organization that stepped up to now launch what is known as the Safe Sleeping Site, which helped reduce street homelessness in downtown by 65%. But do you know why sometimes you don't feel like homelessness is moving the needle when you go downtown? That's largely because we don't have accountability for cities across this region that are doing nothing to address homelessness. Every day downtown, I can tell you, we have folks that come from cities all across this region to seek resources. If you want to talk about a budget crisis as well, these things are simultaneously, they go hand in hand. We need greater accountability for the cities that are doing nothing about homelessness, and we need to start talking about how we can better ensure that our resources are better collaborated here in the city to ensure that folks can, you, the taxpayers, don't continue to bear the burden of other cities' lack of responsibility.
Candidate Crosby.
I mean, it's hard to say that homelessness will ever be eradicated because homelessness is not a new thing and it's always existed since biblical times. And what we see today is a multi-layered problem, and it deserves a multi-layered approach. We need to make sure that we're managing our public spaces in a safe and humane way. We need to make sure that there are accessible resources, which come in a variety for substance use, mental health, make sure that that continuum of care is actually accessible. And we need to really make sure that our police are able to deal with the petty crimes that go along with it. But more importantly, looking at our housing commission, working with our housing commission so we can divest ourselves. I mean, we'll still keep the federal vouchers, but we know that the waiting list is 20 years long. We need to be more innovative and work internally with the state to make sure that we are getting a return on investment and being able to open up more opportunities for people to live. Because if people end up getting $2 more an hour, then they can lose their housing. And that cold turkey method really produces poverty in an infinity cycle.
Okay. What is your position on Siegelman's efforts to take over control of Liberty Station? I'm going to start with candidate Crosby.
No, they should not be taking over Liberty Station. Liberty Station belongs to the residents of San Diego. Liberty Station is a beautiful park. It's also economic. It is just a wonderful thing that you could call it so many different things. Like for us to think that we're going to do another bad real estate deal and just give it away for free, we should be rioting if that happens. Not that I'm inciting anything, but it is truly important for us to take seriously the value that that space has to our community. It is free for people to go to. We can help our businesses that are able to be inside the food hall in their small economic way. and we can walk with our children and play with our seniors and, give something for the, Mean Green team to do during the week. And I think that that is something that we should continue doing. So no, they should not take it over.
Candidate Bailey.
Think back to around 2000 when Liberty Station was just undergoing redevelopment. What do you think it would look like today if the city managed that property? Do you think it would look the same today? Not a chance. It wouldn't even be developed. And how do we know this? We can look at Building 619. Candidate Crosby mentioned how beautiful Liberty Station is, and it is. But only the places that are actually privately managed. The places that are still managed by the city of San Diego don't look near as nice as the privately managed areas. And probably there's no greater example of this than Building 619, which after being promised to the residents of Point Loma that the city was going to turn into an aquatic center, what happened to it? It burned to the ground after 20 years of sitting vacant. So right now the choice is, and this is going to get settled in court, as to whether or not the city is compelled by state law through the dissolution of redevelopment to actually sell Liberty Station. It's either going to go to the Sullivan Group or it's going to remain in the hands of the city. Well, I don't want to see it remain. I don't want to see it transfer to the hands of the city because we've already seen how bad of a job the city is at managing any property at all.
Candidate Havlick.
No, that is property of the city of San Diego that was gifted to the U.S. Navy. And we have been maintaining that space. And so Siegelman, got a really good deal. They didn't do that with their own money, and we all know it. And they want to steal our property, and they want to steal our money. There's money there for redevelopment along the Eastern Channel. That there's about $23 million sitting there in ROP funds. And they want to steal that along with the property. I'm very much against that. And I'm very hopeful that the city will prevail in that. That is a city asset. It's such a vibrant culture space. You go down there, we've got the Signet Theater, we've got Public Station, we've got the Art District. We've got so many cool things that are going on down there. And on top of that, there's plans, to bring an aquatic complex there. Where that burnout building Richard's talking about? That's where they want to put it. And so we're not done. The city's not done with Liberty Station, and it belongs to the city of San Diego, period.
Candidate Coyne.
Thank you. When the state did away with redevelopment agencies, I think it was a terrible decision to not have an adequate plan, frankly, and also adequate funding to ensure that we're not left in these particular moments. I think I'd like to believe that the city has an incredible opportunity. Frankly, I believe in my city. That's why I'm up here. I believe that our government does have an opportunity and should have an opportunity to redevelop a public space to be an adequate asset. I believe that we have the capability of doing that. But frankly, I think as outlined, the timeline is coming up and the city needs to frankly decide whether it's going to meet the moment and put together a redevelopment plan just as the law requires. And I would be excited to see a bold and ambitious plan as outlined and as discussed to ensure that we can provide for the residents of the entire city, not just Point Loma, but I don't know if the city can do that. And I think that's the part that is extremely frustrating. So the city needs to either put together a redevelopment plan and do it as I believe we can, or as outlined, they're gonna get stuck in the court. Thanks.
Candidate Supa.
Looks like we may have a unanimous one here because we do not want to relinquish control of this gem, Liberty Station, to proven entities that are mismanaging the asset. And until we manage it properly, then it's got to stay within the community which it serves.
Candidate Mitchell.
So, to what Mr. Bailey was saying about the areas being public, the areas being privately developed are the best parts of Liberty Station, that's because they had such a nice lease contract. That was the agreement with the city. You guys develop it, you get like $1 a year in your lease. Now that Seligman has that lease, they're holding the lease over our head. And they're saying, we only pay $1 a year till 2060. So I get to buy Liberty Station for $2.7 million, $6 a square foot. What the heck? So we are getting bent over by the Siegelman Group. And honestly, they're lobbying the San Diego Unified School District to be part of it. They're one of the agencies, maybe this has changed. It has changed? Or they're one of the reasons that we can't secure ownership right now. So I'd go over there and be like, I thought you guys worked for the city. Do you want us to sell this beautiful public asset that I've spent my entire life here? This is where I play after school. I would skip rocks, so if there's no more flat rocks next to that like Kanaka area, sorry.
Okay. Do you support the city's sanctuary city designation in its refusal to work with ICE, Border Patrol, or investigate officials? Yes or no, and why? We're going to start with candidate Mitchell.
So I think these enforcement strategies with ICE have not prioritized public safety, nor have they prioritized violent criminals. And that's what I would like to see from an immigration policy, if it's aggressive, is to aggressively go towards people that threaten the community. They don't do that. They go outside of Home Depot and they get people who are trying to make their life, and they might not be legal citizens, but that is not the threat to public safety. That is not what's making the community safer. So currently we don't do any support outside of violent criminals, and I would keep that up. Unless the federal agency shows that it's going to prioritize the public safety of the cities that it's operating in, I do not support anything related to them.
Candidate Havlik.
I'm in support of sanctuary cities. I'm a first-generation American on my mom's side. And an unfortunate reality, my mom has passed, but she would have been caught up in this and sent back to Canada because there was a lapse in some of her paperwork years ago. And so I'm not for terrorizing people who want to be here. We need to really streamline the process from point A to point C to clearly highlight the steps and the administrative costs and the fees so that it doesn't take decades for people who want to become US citizens to do that. I am not in support of ICE. I don't support their terrorization of our communities. And I think we can do better when it comes to the immigration practice and policies in our neighborhood.
Candidate Crosby.
It's not the San Diego Police's job to do the bidding of the federal government. As a longtime prosecutor, our due process, our search and seizure laws, these don't just apply to local law enforcement. If our local law enforcement was doing anything in our city that is remotely close to what the federal government has been doing, we would also be aghast. They would be arrested, they'd be prosecuted probably, and we need to really think about what is important. What's important is community safety. I've worked with victims of violent crime for many, many years. And we need to make sure that people are not afraid to report crime and abuse that's happened to them. And by not being a sanctuary city, if we weren't a sanctuary city, we would be forcing people back into the shadows. What is paramount is that, America is the land of the free, home of the brave. Lady Liberty is here to invite all of our poor, hungry, unsheltered, and we are here to work together to create a better tomorrow together. And a sanctuary city is something that helps us do that.
Candidate Supa.
I support immigration enforcement, but not in its current form. Administrative law, there are no judges signing the warrants for ICE. And if we're expected to suspend Fourth Amendment constitutional protections against search and seizure, then we need to have judges review and sign warrants. Until then, what we have is rogue, untrained agents that are disrespecting and not adhering to the constitutional protections that we all must demand. So until then, until there is proper training, until ICE adheres to the Constitution, I like my ice crushed.
Okay, Candidate Coyne.
I do. I think San Diego has an incredible opportunity to lead the way as a border city. Think about the opportunities that we have given folks as we talk about our regional shared economy. I think it's important that we continue to be a beacon for the rest of the country and outline how it is that we can lead the way. I think Congress needs to continue to step up and act to provide true reforms that don't continue to trickle down and impact us, especially as we talk about all the other issues that are important to us, like the budget. All of these issues matter. They are all connected. I did a ride along with the Northern Division of the Police Department, and I will tell you that it is just as scary for them right now on the street, frankly, because folks are so upset. They're taking it out on our own police officers. We have to do a better job of making sure that we are providing a safe city for everyone, right? And that we continue to lead the way and ensure that folks get the resources that they deserve as a sanctuary city.
Candidate Bailey.
We're also a nation of laws. And prior to 2018, it was not controversial and it was not uncommon at all for state officials and county officials to cooperate with federal immigration officials, especially when it came to the release of violent criminals from jails. And that actually occurred during the Obama administration. ICE actually had facilities within Hennepin County jail systems so that when violent criminals were released, they could be turned immediately over to ICE officials and removed from the community, like I'm sure most of us in here would prefer. Violent criminals, regardless of their immigration status, should not be in our neighborhoods. But for some reason, it started becoming increasingly controversial, and I think that's due to the rhetoric at the national level. I also think it's due to the rhetoric at the local level. We should want our local officials cooperating with federal officials for the betterment of our communities, not for their political causes.
Okay, deep breath. Regarding the Ocean Beach Pier, would you advocate for the repair, for the replacement, or something else? Okay. And we're going to start with candidate Havlick.
My kids went to OB Elementary. The pier is a vital asset to not just Ocean Beach, but to the entire city of San Diego. I believe it's imperative that we focus on finding funding for that pier so that we can revitalize it and reopen it. Right now it's closed due to the damage. I'm aware that the copper has currently been stripped or being stripped. There are some issues in the parking lot, but I see this as a great economic driver for the downtown portion of Ocean Beach. I like the renderings that I'm seeing, that they don't have a retail space. I'd love for us to potentially continue to look at the environmental opportunities to bring environmental education, especially for the tide pools that are there below the pier. I really feel like as your next city council member, that is going to be one of my biggest priorities, to get funding for the pier, get it built, and get it opened.
Candidate Crosby.
The pier needs to be replaced, and the pier should be replaced because the pier is a very important part of our community, not just for kids who jump off of it or used to after their lifeguard, but just for memories. And this is one of the items that I talked about for grants. So I just say grants generally. It doesn't mean that we're cobbling together a few $1,000s here and there, but we get line items. The federal and the state budget, the state legislature, and the governor, and the president, and the Congress, they can actually do line items where they can give millions of dollars for specific programs and specific projects. So when I say grants are one-time funding, I'm not talking about like asking someone down the street for a few $100. We are talking about major dollars for a major economic infrastructure. We as Californians, we as San Diegans, we pay the top dollar into the taxes that go to generate life and business and everything in this country. And that is a small ask in return to revitalize and replace our OB pier.
Candidate Coyne.
I'm not an engineer. You shouldn't elect me as an engineer, to be very honest with you. So I can't tell you whether there's maybe some structurally sound opportunity with the current pier, but I can tell you we need a new pier. And I agree with Nicole that if what is happening in Ocean Beach happened in San Francisco, the state would have already had dedicated funding to ensure that that pier was back open again. And I'm tired of San Diego being treated as a small town in Sacramento. We need and deserve the funding that our economic engines require to talk about how it is that we can drive revenue into the city that has been terribly devastating to Ocean Beach. And it's important that we add it to the list of priorities outlined here today as possible revenue drivers to ensure that it can be put back online as soon as possible. And I believe that the state should also, just as it has done, expedite whatever is needed to ensure coastal review is done to ensure that the pier is opened as soon as possible.
Candidate Bailey.
Whether or not the pier should be replaced or repaired, it's really not the question. We all know the pier should be reopened in some way, shape, or form. The real question is, how do you pay for it? The Ocean Beach Pier was a source of community pride. It was an economic engine. Unfortunately, it's also an example of just terrible financial mismanagement. The best practice when you build a new facility is to estimate its useful life and start budgeting accordingly for the eventual replacement of that facility. Today, the city has set aside exactly $0 for the replacement of the Ocean Beach Pier. This practice is played out at various facilities all around the city of San Diego, not just Ocean Beach. So whether it's repaired or replaced, we need to have funding available. I do think there is an opportunity here to either bond against future tax revenues, specifically to fund the Ocean Beach Pier, or pursue funding from the state or the federal government. Those are the only three ways this is actually going to happen. And given the present state of the financial situation for both the federal government and state government, I don't think we should hold our breath on that.
Candidate Mitchell.
Yeah, I want to hold our breath. It's probably going to take a long time to get the funds to make this get done. The reality is you need money in the budget to do a $120, $150 million development project, and the return on that is a bit obfuscated. It will take a while for the city to see that return. So it's going to be lowly prioritized. The reality is we will probably need to maximize the amount of state grants that we can get to replace this. But unless there's responsible budgeting and returns to basic services, then it's just never going to get built. The reality is the money will never show up in a permanently deficit budget. Thank you.
Candidate Zupa.
The pier's gonna cost about $200 million, and so where do we get that money? And I keep going back to the budget and our outsized police. If we were to align our police budget with the national average, we would actually free up $350 million. We could close the budget gap of $120 million, and we've got $200 million for a new pier. I'm not saying that's what we should do, but a combination thereof. So if we do not replace it, what's gonna happen is some surfer's gonna be shooting the pier in their surfboard, and a big chunk of cement's gonna fall on them and it's gonna kill them. And then they're gonna go get some lawyer like me, and we're gonna sue the city for like 30 million bucks, okay? We cannot let that happen. We have to act now. There will be liability if we do not act now, and we can get the money, right? We have the money. But we need to be serious about balancing the budget with our outsized liabilities like pension liabilities and police funding. Thank you.
Okay, repeal the fees for parking at Balboa Park and the trash tax fees. It's a real hot topic. Where do you stand? So Balboa Park parking and the trash tax fees. And we're going to start with Candidate Crosby.
Neighbors are, as I said, are super angry that the city council doubled the trash fee that the voters approved. And it's about transparency. So I do think if this problem isn't fixed in December, the first thing I'm going to do is docket the item that says this needs to match what is in our ballot book, because that's what voters approved. And that is what's fair. And as San Diegans, we should not be paying to visit our city parks. It should not be hard to go appreciate the beautiful crown jewel that is Balboa Park. There is so much there to offer everyone, but if we're excluding San Diegans to the benefit of outside interest, that is not fair. And we cannot continue to let San Diegans not be prioritized. San Diegans are my priority, and I look forward to supporting efforts that put more money in your pocket and let you do more things in your own city.
Candidate Bailey.
The trash fee was obviously a bait and switch because the city knew it would never pass with voters if they actually shared with voters the true cost. And what's interesting about the true cost of the trash collection services in the city of San Diego is that they're about 33% more than every other city in the county. Why? Because every other city in the county relies on third-party trash haulers, EDCO, Waste Management, Republic, who provide better service for a significantly lower price. So the city should divest itself from its trash collection services to save money for the city and for the taxpayers. So I'm very much in favor of repealing the trash tax. Also, I'm very much in favor of repealing the parking fees at Balboa Park. Not just for greater access to the park from residents from City of San Diego, County of San Diego, but also because we are seeing serious financial implications for the museums and the businesses that operate within the park. 30 to 40% reduction in attendance, 30 to 40% reduction in financial income to these institutions. It's been a disaster from an equity standpoint, an access standpoint, and also financial standpoint. So please join me in helping repeal these fees.
Candidate Supa.
So what politician is going to sit up here and tell you we need to repeal these fees, we have to repeal the trash fees? We're not going to agree to these increased fees. Nobody would elect us if we said yay on those fees, right? What are the fees? 150 million for trash, about 25 million for parking fees that they're trying to generate. So if we're going to remove those drivers, those cost increases, then we have to honestly evaluate and reconcile the budget with the larger cost drivers, which I've already mentioned, right? You have 3 million for fire, 378 million for pension liabilities that don't do anything. It's the result of decades of mismanagement and collective bargaining agreements that are not in the interests of the people, individuals that are collecting pensions more than their salaries. And then of course we have the budget for the police of 718 million in 2027. That's $2 out of every 3. We're fighting for the scraps.
Kenneth Coyne.
I think it's important to note, I think I mentioned this earlier, I don't think the city is going to solve its budget crisis with fees and fines. Business will tell you that when you look at your checkbook or when you balance your budget at home, same thing. We need predictable and consistent financing to ensure that we can meet the moment on how it is that we are delivering basic services. When it comes to trash, I shared this earlier, 18 cents of every dollar you pay in property taxes stays at the city, the rest goes elsewhere. The reality is, some of you in the room are already paying for trash. I've been paying for trash the entire time that I've lived in Point Loma for close to 11 years. And the voters passed that initiative twice. Do I think there's an opportunity to ensure moving forward, as I mentioned, that it's predictable and consistent? Yes. And I'd like to believe that our city can compete with business. I'm running because I want to invest in our city and ensure that we can meet the moment to deliver better basic services. As far as Balboa Park, I will tell you it's second to potholes. When I've knocked thousands of doors, I will tell you it comes up every time. And I will tell you that it is in leadership, as someone used to teach leadership, it's time to revisit it and start over.
Kenneth Mitchell.
So I'm sad to say I'm probably part of that 30% that's decreased their visitation to Balboa Park. It impacted the way I view a trip there because it used to be a free opportunity to walk in the park and enjoy a great public asset. And then maybe I stumble into a museum or buy a coffee at a store. Actually, one of my favorite smoothies is at the museum restaurant over there. I think that's what the city council is missing. They're missing the lived experience of someone who just is in the community. I'll tell you, within 1 second of hearing there's a Balboa parking fee, I was like, what are they doing? It is the most illogical thing, and it really attacks the character of what this community is. San Diego is a beautiful place to be outside and enjoy the beach and Balboa Park, and we need to incentivize people to be outside and enjoying these public spaces and not making them revenue generators. We shouldn't be taxing people to enjoy our city. We should be taxing where revenue should be generated, like short-term vacation rentals, and not the average citizen. Thank you.
Candidate Havlick.
I understand why residents were so furious about the fee. You know, it seemed like the city was not very honest about the actual costs. The rollout has been very frustrating for our community members. But I do have real concerns about if the repeal is successful, that is going to take money away from our city that we're gonna have to find. And so if that is the case, the city needs to be honest about what type of funding would be needed if the repeal was successful. I'm not in favor of Balboa parking fees. I'm not in favor of beach parking fees. I do not believe our city should be creating a city of have and have-nots. Balboa Park is a crown jewel of our city. It's one of the cheapest things you can do is go to the park with your family, and a lot of people who support the park or visit the park right now can't go as often as they would love to because of the new cost, and we can do better here in the city of San Diego for our residents.
Okay, this is the last question. What are your plans for increasing public input and transparency on important city decisions? And we will start with candidate Zupa. What are your plans for increasing public input and transparency on important city decisions?
Transparency is about educating ourselves on the budget. As it stands now, it's unsustainable. And if we don't act now and reverse cost drivers, we will need to file a Chapter 9 bankruptcy. The city is facing a looming bankruptcy. And if we are going to meaningfully reevaluate collective bargaining agreements, bloated service contracts, and eliminate substantial waste and corruption, then we need to address and reform the budget. It's not being done. I've provided concrete solutions about what we need to do to address it. And until we do so, we will slide into oblivion in terms of these fees that continue to rise. We will, as a people, continually be fighting for the remainder of the budget. We will continue to have library closures, centers close, and increase fees. We love the city. Let's reverse that. Thank you.
Candidate Mitchell.
Could you repeat the question so I can answer it fully?
What are your plans for increasing public input and transparency on important city decisions?
Okay, well, first off, there's been a structural pulling of the public planning group's authority and moving that up, either to the city or even the state being our litigator. I want us to be as accountable to just this district as possible. So one of the things I would do, I would divert as much funding as I can towards the city auditor. It is the only inbuilt part of our system that is a check and balance on power. They are the ones that tell us that police officers overtime are such a big portion of the budget. This is where we can actually gather info and make educated cuts. So first off, cut the city auditor, you get a positive return. It's like the IRS. No one really likes them, but they make you money, so you should give them money. And then furthermore, I would be in as many planning groups as I can. I've gone to quite a few, and I don't always see our councilwoman's representative there. And so that would be one of the goals, is just to make sure there's someone at as many planning board meetings as possible. Thank you.
Candidate Bailey.
Accessibility, responsiveness, and representation. One common theme I've heard from all the doors I've knocked on, all the community groups I've visited, is that they feel as though their current council member is missing in action. And I think there is a tremendous opportunity here to reconstitute these planning groups, which have largely been neutered by both City Hall and the state of California, not necessarily in their previous capacity, but to provide greater access and a bridge between the representative and the community. When we look at the decisions City Hall is facing right now, the truth is that much of the information to make those decisions is actually available, but it's not being adequately communicated in a very accessible way to the people we represent. So greater accessibility through scheduled standard meetings all throughout the district, so you know exactly when and where you can reach your representative actually in person. sharing that data, receiving feedback, and then representing your interests at City Hall, not the special interests.
Candidate Havlick.
As the first vice chair of the Community Planning Board, I definitely plan to engage with my community. The first, as Jacob said, request audits. We need to audit the city top to bottom to get a handle on what our budget is and find opportunities to reduce costs. The other thing I'll be doing is conducting public surveys and town halls to really create a baseline of the pulse of my community. We haven't had representation for 8 years. We're hungry and we're frustrated. We want change. And I have an extensive background in customer service. I want to bring world-class customer service to our communities and to repair the damage. We need a city that works for us, and we want someone that is going to stop ignoring us as a community. So you can count on me when I create policy, or if I'm looking to make a decision, I'm going to be reaching out to you. I'm going to be reaching out to the town councils, the community planning groups, the Point Loma associations, and the foundations that are all the stakeholders of my neighborhood to make sure that I'm in step with my neighborhood.
Candidate Crosby.
You need to show up and you need to be honest, and that's what's really important. If the mayor presents me when I'm sitting on the dais with a big issue, big policy, and we haven't had time to review it, I'm not voting yes. I'm voting to postpone it, to send it back to staff so we have time to review it. There should not be any surprises. There should not be the secret squirrel method of doing business at City Hall. And that's because I want to be able to talk to my community members. If I don't know what's going on, then you probably don't know what's going on, and that's not a way to do business at all. And also get rid of misinformation. I am very tired of people who blame things on our city workers. It's not the pension's fault. The city of San Diego doesn't pay into Social Security. That's a 6.2% savings. City workers, they pay into their pension. It is a known number. The city just needs to pay their bills. So let's not blame the workers. Let's make sure we support them. And we need to make sure that they don't skyrocket into into homelessness. And that's why misinformation is terrible. Thank you.
Candidate Coyne.
When we voted in a strong mayor form of government, we made the mayor the chief executive of our city. The mayor's departments are responsible for coordinating contracts, working with the city attorney to write resolutions to bring to the council. That is on the mayor. And I agree that as a council, though, this council needs to act a little stronger when it comes to the timelines in which it has had an opportunity to review said notices to ensure, right, that you all and the council have an opportunity to review. Council has an opportunity to establish council policies. They control the docket. They have an opportunity to ensure that we're meeting the moment. I will also tell you, there is a little bit of trust that's important, though, that we ensure you do see your council member out at your community meetings, not just their staff, but your council member. Just like you see your congressperson, just like you see your state elected representatives. It's important that we ensure that these structures are in place and the council does its due diligence to ensure that these items that are coming before them have been thoroughly reviewed and do not need to go back. And frankly, that would also ensure that we prevent future lawsuits as well.
Okay, before our candidates give their closing remarks, I want to thank you for being an attentive audience and asking great questions. To learn about the work of the League, please visit our website, which is lwvsandiego.org. We have the website you can find this QR code that provides trusted information on candidates and ballot measures at the local, state, and federal level. And there's also, you can go to vote411.org. Both of these are over at the table there. 411.org, super cool site. You put in your address, and it'll come up with what's just on your ballot. It'll give you information about your candidate, so you don't have to sift through pages that don't apply. So these are both on the table on your way out. Now for the closing statements. Please hold your applause until all candidates have completed their statements. Each candidate will have 2 minutes, and we'll be reversing the order that the opening statements were. So we're going to start with candidate Coyne.
Thank you. I want to thank the League of Women Voters and the Point Loma Association again for hosting this. As mentioned before, I'm really humbled and honored to be up here. It's an incredible privilege to be able to share with you my vision and opportunity that I see for our growing city. I'm the product of hard work, the son of a business owner and a grocery store clerk, fond business memories serving during the summer with my grandparents, an opportunity to ensure that I had more than my parents received. It's extremely important that we do the same for our next generation. This city is in a meet-the-moment opportunity. I am tired of our city being in a constant state of crisis. Infrastructure, homelessness, budget, for everything, the Liberty Station, everything has been in a constant state of crisis. The budget crisis is not new. It's time for the city to end it and elect leaders that are able to make difficult decisions and be honest with you about what the cost is to ensure we can meet this moment. We need to end our street homelessness crisis, rebuild our infrastructure, which includes housing and transportation. We need to ensure we address the cost of living to ensure folks like you and future generations can live in our beautiful city. It's an incredible opportunity for us to ensure that we can do that. I'm proud of the work that I've done to not sit on the sidelines, but step up and provide real solutions to move us forward. When young folks were feeling left out, I had served 8 years as a crisis counselor to ensure that they had the resources that they needed. When our city was facing a COVID crisis, I was there 24/7 working with families and businesses to ensure they had the correct information from their government. And when the city wasn't doing enough about street homelessness, I'm proud to work for an organization that stepped in and up to reduce homelessness in downtown. We need someone that is willing to bring our city forward, that cares about our city, that believes that this is the time for us to end the constant state of crisis and meet the moment. I'm Josh Coyne. I hope to earn your support. You can learn more at electjoshcoyne.com. Thank you very much.
Candidate Crosby.
Forgot the numbers here. Thank you so much for saving democracy, League of Women Voters. Our city government has been failing us for years. And for too long, San Diegans have been playing second fiddle to big business and special corporate interest. It's everyday San Diegans like you that make this America's finest city. And our streets need to be paved, and our streetlights are out, and the city isn't staffing the necessary positions that give the people what they want, the basics. And as your next city councilwoman, I'm gonna do the work. I'll work to rebuild our community trust in local government, to make sure that we're auditing our city budget, that we're working with our community leaders, and making sure that we're putting a stop to unvetted policy that has not been discussed with our neighborhoods that it impacts. As the endorsed candidate of the San Diego City Firefighters and a longtime prosecutor, public safety is a priority. And I think that it's really important that we make sure that we're fully staffed and they have the equipment they need and that their response times are shorter. I'll work with city staff to ensure that our contracts are audited, ID where we can best use our limited dollars because San Diegans need them to go to them. And I'll work with our city departments to aggressively, yes, we're gonna go back to apply for the billions and millions of dollars of grants that are available in the state and federal government for things that we need most, like our parks, like our pier, like our infrastructure, public safety, and housing. Like these are real things that are actually accessible to San Diegans when we work with our partners at the state and federal level. San Diego City District 2, you know, they deserve, and you deserve, and we deserve a council member who has vision, experience, and delivers results. And I'm here to be a champion for you to do that. I'm Nicole Crosby. I'm running for San Diego City Council District 2 because I want to work for you.
Candidate Mitchell.
Well, I don't have experience. I have heart, and I do think I'll deliver you results. I don't have an established political career. I'm just a chemist. But if you can solve a Schrodinger equation, I think I can figure where we've got waste in our budget, okay? So, I think I would represent this community really well. And so that's why I'm up here. But I'm up here because I don't stand by, whether it's donating my bone marrow to a stranger or first job I got out of college was making COVID tests, and I was working 80-hour work weeks. And then once COVID ended, I quit my job and spent 10 months in Europe backpacking, but I'm a member of the community, and I care about each and every one of you, and they tell me I can't stand. I'm standing up. Sorry. Thank you guys so much for coming here and being involved and invested in what happens here. And luckily we've got so many candidates up here who I hear a lot of great ideas. I'll tell you, I'm a thief. I'm gonna steal grant funding from her. I'm gonna steal some police stuff from him. Like, I might not be educated on city policies, like, personally, but what I do have is a bunch of cities in the country that I can look at their policies and look how they've affected their community. And no blanket thing is gonna work in every community, but you can see where policies are actually aligning with the interests that inspired them. And that's what we're not getting here in Point Loma. So if I were to be on city council, I would just care about you guys. I don't give a crap about Todd, okay? Like, or Siegelman, or Kroenke. Like, I don't want connections with developers and billionaires. I want to make this community work for the, I keep doing it, average citizen. On the wrong height, it's just right there. I really do think I would serve this community well, and I am not an established candidate. I don't have the money. So part of this is on you guys to spread this message and to tell people to check out jacobmitchell2026.com and learn more and learn about the detailed nuances of my policies. I'm not great at talking points, sorry. Thank you.
Candidate Havlik.
Thank you again for being here tonight. It really shows that you care about the direction our community is going. This election is bigger than one seat. It's about the future of our neighborhoods. It's about the future of District 2 and whether the people who live here will finally have someone at City Hall who truly fights for them. I'm asking for your vote because I've already shown you who I am. You know me. And for over a decade, I've been serving this community. I've been there protecting our parks, standing up for neighborhoods, working on traffic safety, fighting for the environment, and fighting for responsible growth and showing up when it mattered. I'm not asking for trust based on promises. I'm asking based on a record of service. San Diego became my home because of the military. My family, my husband is a Navy combat disabled veteran. We know what it means to serve and sacrifice. And we know what it means to face challenges, keep going and fight for what matters. I've had to fight for things in my life. I know resilience, I know perseverance. I have grit and determination, and that is exactly what we need at City Hall right now. We need someone who will stand with us now. We need someone because we know that the time is now. This is one of the most important elections our community has. It's going to determine the next 4 to 8 years of decisions that will shape our community. You have a choice. If you want more of the same, you have some options over here. But if you want a neighbor, a fighter, and someone who's been doing the work, I ask for your vote. I'm Mandy Havlik. Come join me. Let's bring the community back to City Hall where it belongs.
Candidate Supa.
Our leaders need to be accountable here and now. And there's about 150,000 constituents in District 2. I'm so grateful that you are all here. I'm grateful and thankful to the Women's League of Voters, Point Loma Association. It takes a collective will to make impactful, significant change, and that's what really is required. As an attorney, I've had many bosses, whether it's the California State Bar or my own boss at Estelle and Kennedy, a professional law corporation where I'm a partner. The client is also my boss. The judge that I am in front of in court is my boss. So I'm okay with that. I'm okay with being an active listener. I want to talk to each and every one of you. I want to identify the smartest people in the room, and then you feed me the ideas, right? I work for you. I take my instructions from you. I'm only making one promise, and that's if elected, I will quit my job and I will go to work for you, District 2, full time. I will fight for you. I am very serious about a balanced budget. I am not a career politician. I'm not beholden to any special interest groups. I haven't even accepted any money at all. I don't accept donations. So maybe that's gonna hurt me, but at the end of the day, I'm here because I love this city. I've been a resident of District 2 in San Diego for 30 plus years. And I really encourage everybody, come and talk to us, give us your ideas. We don't have all the ideas, so we need you to educate us, right? And that's really what it's going to take to affect the appropriate change. And it's gonna have to be revolutionary, folks, so that we are not continuing to fight for what is left over. I'm Paul Supa. God bless y'all. Thank you for being here.
Candidate Bailey.
Thank you. If you walk into City Hall right now and you walk through City Hall's front doors, you'll see a sign. Top of that sign says City of San Diego. Underneath that sign, it says America's finest city, the city's motto. Except several letters on that sign are actually missing. They have fallen off. The mayor, every council member, and every staff member that walks downtown walks by that sign every single day, but no one has had the pride required to actually get that sign fixed. That lack of pride is what has led us to have a structural deficit despite having record high revenues. That lack of pride is what has led us to have failing services across the board despite having record high staffing. Now, the city of San Diego is the 8th largest city in the country. It has over 8,000 employees in the city's general fund with revenues over $2 billion. We are asking you as shareholders to elect one of us as a member of the board of directors to represent you on this organization. Now, if you think the organization is going in the right direction, despite all the data, I'm probably not the right person for you. But if you believe that we need to take this ship in a different direction, then we have to accept that more of the same political platitudes, more of the same political class, more of the same type of leadership is not actually going to make the change we want to see. We all hear about the importance of diversity, but when you look at the current city council, there is no diversity of professional experience. The vast majority of the city council members right now are all former government staffers. We need people that have the right financial expertise, both in the public sector and the private sector, that actually have real business experience for large corporations and small businesses. I believe I'm the right candidate for the job to best represent your interests and turn our organization around. If you want to find out more, please visit richardbailey.com.
On behalf of the Point Loma Association and the League of Women Voters San Diego, I want to thank the candidates for running for office and for attending our forum tonight. And thank all of you again for being here. You're here tonight. You're following our motto, which is don't just be a voter, be an informed voter. Drive safely, have a good evening.